tank, when it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the Shrimp Tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things, chasing big dreams. Yeah, it's all real, this life's all that it seems. All the chicks scream, all the dudes yell. This is just what I do and I do it well. With the flow fresher than the new shoe smell. Going through hell, well homie keep going. You know the saying, you gon' reap what you sow in. So I don't chase girls, I just chase dreams. Play the same game, but we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, put me in charge. I'm a general, from the front I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, powered by Celsius Beverage. This is the show where street smarts and book smarts collide, that is ran in collaboration with the FEU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. If this is your first time tuning in, you catch all these amazing episodes up on our website, shrimptankpodcast.com, and of course on all your favorite podcast apps. I'm joined by Dr. Kevin Cox today with a room full of his entrepreneurship class students. Every week, these students are going to ask different questions on the show. That is the new format. And of course, catch these amazing episodes, chat with them one-on-one, message them on LinkedIn, because these entrepreneurs are here to share knowledge. Dr. Kevin Cox, what's going on at FAU right now?
Oh, lots going on. As usual, next week is the kickoff for the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp. You can still register. That's completely free for students. You just jump right on Startup Tree or Google FAU Adams Center, and you'll find the boot camp. And then finally, last call for our Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program. That's a comprehensive 8-week program designed for veteran entrepreneurs, and it's completely subsidized by Veterans Florida. So it's free for any veteran Florida resident in good standing. Really great program, comprehensive support. We'll have a pitch competition at the end, and it should really be a lot of fun. We've also got going on right now the National Science Foundation's I-Core program. I just came from teaching in that. Very interesting technologies ranging from nanotechnology for diagnosing diseases to all sorts of different innovative solutions for problems that farmers face in terms of plant disease diagnosis using a smartphone. Most of the stuff I don't understand at all, but I help them with their business models, not their technology.
That sounds pretty awesome, what's happening here at FAU. And again, this podcast is all about finding the do's and don'ts of running a business. We get to feature such amazing entrepreneurs from down here in South Florida. So catch all these amazing episodes. We're going to get right into today's guest. He does so much with nonprofits locally here as well as nationally. We have Micah Robbins joining us on the Shrimp Tank. To kick things off, Micah, can you just share a little bit about the businesses you're operating and your journey? We want to go back to those early days. You graduated college, and then what happened after that?
Oh, we should go back even further than that.
Okay, we could do that. We go.
Entrepreneurship's in the DNA.
Yes.
My father was a small business owner and actually was in marketing and media, had his own company for a zillion years. And it's interesting is he kind of got retired just as the social media era began. He actually almost intentionally retired a little bit early. He's like, I don't have another set in me to make that transition. So I grew up in the analog world of media and cut a lot of my first job was at 5.
Print. That's what that's
print,
like.
but I was
Everyone
doing
out there
over,
listening.
voiceovers, overdubs, writing copy, old school commercials. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So, but learning a lot from him, and of course at the business community where I grew up in the great state of Maine, where small business really is the lifeblood of that state. So it really started there. And quite frankly, when I finished school, my educational path was a little bit different. I wasn't, even though business was in the blood, education was my background. But turning that into more social entrepreneurship was what really intrigued me about making a difference in other people's lives, and having that great mentors and great opportunities there has certainly led me to where I am here. And it was literally during school that I really started that work, getting into a lot of public speaking, facilitation.
Did you start with a 9-to-5 job first, though, after college, or did you go right to being an entrepreneur?
Basically, 9 to 5 in the sense that, it was a paid position, but I've never been a 9-to-5 guy ever in my life. So, if I could say that to any entrepreneur out there, if you're expecting 9-to-5, you're in the wrong line.
So when you first got started in social entrepreneurship, and for the listeners and students back in the classroom, if you're not familiar, social entrepreneurship is kind of like a hybrid between a for-profit business and a non-profit business. Legally, it's not structured so much as a hybrid, but as a for-profit business, but it has the purposeful mission of doing some societal good or benefit. What era were you first getting involved with that?
What era? This would have been the early mid-90s.
Yeah, see, that's why I asked, because this is something that's become increasingly popular. You were very early in the social entrepreneurship space. Nowadays, we have so many companies. Tom's Shoes got famous for this, the buy one, give one pairs of shoes. And then we have past guests and somewhat recent FAU alumni founders, Alex and Andrew over at 4Ocean. Right?
Yeah.
They pull a ton of trash out of the oceans, but they're not structured as a nonprofit. So it's a really interesting business model. And now it's timely and popular, but you were in on that very early. Nowadays, you can form something called a B Corp or benefit corporation, which is its own legal structure. Back then, they didn't even have those.
No, it's straight 501c3 is where we kind of make things happen there. And that's so you can certainly create streams of funding, both through granting, philanthropic work, fundraising, et cetera. It's funny you mentioned 4Ocean and Tom's Shoes, because in Maine at that time, it's like the land of this stuff. So at that time, Tom's of Maine products, the toothpaste, the mouthwash, same thing. They'd created that. If you're familiar with Patagonia, the clothing company, they're very much engaged in that. And their founder is from Auburn, Maine. So it's sort of in our, again, as I was saying,
that's what all the tech founders, that's the uniform.
That's
for all the tech founders.
But let's touch on this a little bit.
By the way,
there's a lot of,
I have a Patagonia fleece vest, just like everybody else.
But let's touch on this. What are your thoughts with everyone just trying to copy them? Because no one talks about the amount of failures, right? Everyone's like, okay, buy a Wawa cup, get one donated to someone that needs coffee out there, right? Like, it's becoming overwhelming how, like, sometimes we're like, do we really need buy one pen, get 7 free, right? Like, there's just so many different PR stunts out there.
And I think that's
and marketing traps.
Absolutely.
And then most of these businesses are actually not pulling it off, right? And it's not always genuine. So kind of what are your thoughts about those type of businesses that are doing that?
I think you just have to do your homework on some of these businesses, right? And any of them that promise the world are generally probably doing a little less, and it's not a knock. I mean, I appreciate their intent and I appreciate their willingness, but when it comes down to it, we see a lot of clothes, a lot of shoes, a lot of pens that wind up, stuffed in places that would never never find them again.
Sure.
But it's really about what their mission is. What's the ultimate goal? And the spaces that I've been in, it's really a one-to-one relationship. It is the efforts and the work you put in are really impacting an individual that moment. And that's a big difference, where a lot of the sort of the marketing version ones, again, there's some great things that are happening. This is no disrespect at all. I think we're in a great place where people are thinking this way now. Now it's about refining that and actually looking at what those impacts are. Just because you gave, did it have an impact? Don't know. Maybe we just gave you something. So, our partners here at FAU, I'll put a plug in for the behavioral health, College of Behavioral Health on campus here. They're working with us very closely at the county level to measure that impact that we're having and showing what we do makes a difference and what are those outcomes. And that's critical in anything. I mean, just in any business you have, not too hard to read a profit and loss sheet and see where you're at. Look and see what your strategies of marketing, if they're paying off or not. Well, it's the same thing in the work that happens in a social entrepreneurial field.
Yeah. So tell everybody, what is your primary focus, your primary business entity, what you're working on right now, and what you are doing.
So multiple, like any entrepreneur, but our primary
28 streams of income.
28 streams of income, or at least brain streams out.
Like 18 streams of income. Like, slow down.
Easy, killer, easy. So the primary one that we've put a lot of effort in the last few years is the Community Recovery Hub of Palm Beach County. It's always hard to say all those words together. The hub. You just need to know the hub. And that is a physical location called a recovery community center that is there to help those that are recovering from substance use disorder, behavioral health needs, that type of challenge that they have. And we have a huge recovery community here in South Florida. I mean, you guys have probably seen a lot of things on the news. Generally, it's in the bad category. However, in the last, say, 10 years, that whole issue has sort of turned 180. We've done a lot of work to improve that environment here. Part of that is kind of switching that thinking from being treatment centric, that everybody needs treatment all the time. Not that that's not important, it can be critical, but what does it look like to be in recovery, which is a long-term journey? And so what we had to do as a community was look at how we engage all together. This isn't a them, a they kind of thing. Everyone. This is probably the number one health crisis in the United States. And I'm looking at some fine college students right here. And one of our largest areas of growth right now, in especially the overdose epidemic, is on college campuses. And it's not because we have a lot of substance addicted individuals. We just have a crazy environment of substance right now. Substance poisonings are up. They keep going up.
What type of substances?
Well, that's the thing. People were calling it heroin, then they were calling it fentanyl. Then it's bagochemicals at this point. There's over 2,000 derivatives of synthetic opioid out there, still counting. So we are in an arms race there. And it's not that the individual, especially kids, aren't like, oh, I'm going to try opiates today. They're like, I can't get my hands on Adderall. Oh, my buddy might have some, or I'll just flip on my phone and find it. And it's counterfeit. You don't come down for breakfast, gang. So it's a different world out there. So the more we need to educate, when we talk about marketing, marketing to the different populations is so important, and how to do that. And one thing I think that goes wrong in the non-for-profit space, especially, is it's kind of like, well, we don't have a budget. We got to keep it in house. Got to do all these things. Or my 16-year-old kid's great on Facebook or Instagram, or it doesn't cut the mustard. This is, you gotta, amateur's hour is over if you want to make a huge difference in this, especially in this space.
Yeah. So let's talk about your business model. This is the Shrimp Tank, a physical location that is not cheap, and
No.
you're structured as a not-for-profit, which means, you survive to some extent off donations as well as grants, but those can be inconsistent. Whereas when you have a physical location, those bills are very consistent, but the income's not as consistent. Tell us about your business model. How do you manage that for sustainability over the long term?
Well, if you have the right mission and you have the right backing, you can make anything happen, right? So in Palm Beach County, this has been a long process, first of all. So getting the concept understood by our community and bought into by our county was a huge piece of the puzzle. So the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners saw the value in this, saw the importance of it, and they were the ones that really got behind it and invested. So having leadership that understands, and so our county has invested into this 501c3 to make this possible. It's unprecedented. So that's an important piece. And then, of course, when your mission sort of drives everything, you're going to bring people that are attracted to it together. So if you do need to raise further funding, absolutely. But that brick and mortar component, it was a huge piece to have our county behind us. Not to say that any other community can't do this, but we were very fortunate to be able to create that relationship.
Yeah, that support is really important. That's great.
And it's interesting too, but all the normal pitfalls of property property management, people forget. It's we're actually moving our Delray hub in a matter of weeks, not for any other reason than the landlord has decided not to renew the lease because they're going in a different business direction. So they're bringing in further retail, and we're not retail, so we'll be closer actually to downtown than Delray, which will blessing in disguise, if you will. So you gotta roll the punches like any business.
And how big's the new location?
Well, we're actually bird dogging it right now. We have a couple in mind. We're currently at about 2,800 square feet. We're probably going to downsize to about 1,800, 2,000.
And share with our audience the different programs.
Sure. So when you come to the hub, first of all, you're going to find something that's very warm and inviting. A lot of times in the recovery space, people get out of treatment or everything that's happened in their lives. They kind of always get the bottom of the barrel treatment. That's not a way to build engagement. That's not a way to build that sort of positive outcome that people are putting so much into their own lives to turn them around. So we've invested heavily in the space itself. So when you arrive, even though we're going to have a new space, it's going to have the same feel. One of the things that we did very intentionally is we hired an interior designer. We hired an interior architect to create spaces that are, the way I could describe it, if you go into really good incubation space, business incubation space, you feel welcome, you feel creative, you feel like you're going to do some great things in there the minute you walk in the door. So we created that exact same space when we had at our centers. So when you walk into the Delray Hub, you have a bright color palette, big furniture that's comfortable, modern, mobile, all the technology you could want. 2 computer labs, our peer support there. We have staff that are there to help you, guide you through all these different things. A whole slew of volunteers and other programs that we bring in. We call it a menu of opportunity. So the community itself informs a lot of the program that's brought in. Which is critical, because if you're not listening to your audience, what are you doing? That top-down approach usually doesn't work too well.
Yeah, that sounds like the exact same feel we're going to have when we transition into our new studio, doesn't it, Jason? That same sort of vibe. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm feeling the vibe here right now, guys. I'm telling you.
This studio is good. Nothing like it's going to be.
It's,
no comment.
I'll tell you, it's interesting though, is being on this format right now too, is I think one of the biggest benefits to this new social media world we live in. Today's my birthday. I'm 50 years old today, guys. Genuine old guy right in front of you. Here we go. But again, crossing that bridge, it's kind of one of those Gen Xers, probably with Dr. Cox here with me, but we that analog to digital world, and so it's good to remember what 8 tracks and records and all those good things were, but to transition to the digital space, when we see a podcast, this is the public forum. This thing is where knowledge gets out there. I don't watch TV. I listen to podcasts, That's because, A-Team isn't on anymore and Hill Street Blues. So TV kind of lame now. But but what you get from individuals, so whatever you are seeking, I mean, think of it. We are in the golden age of entrepreneurship right now, despite the interest rates, despite that. But, it doesn't take much to come up with an idea, to platform it, and to create. I'm an old musician as well. And, back in the day, if you wanted your band heard, you cut a really bad demo and handed out cassettes and CDs at shows, and nobody listened, and you get 50 people to show up. You can build a musical empire from your bedroom now. You can create your own audience and have millions of views. I mean, that's how we're dropping and blowing up artists left and right now. So businesses are the same thing. Platforms to sell your products, platforms to sell your ideas. So if you think about that in the social space, we can make some big differences.
Yeah, and we're finally starting to see some evidence. First thing is they're predicting that interest rates may start moving in the other direction, right? So,
hey, it always goes up, it always goes down.
So that's the one thing. And then I can tell you both a little bit of data and anecdotally, the venture capital markets, for those who aren't familiar, maybe just listening or back in the classroom, that is a marketplace as well. And it goes up and it goes down. And it was way up in 2021 and 22. And the VC venture capital market, angel investors, when it's high, that means there's a lot of investors with a lot of money who want to invest in startups, new ventures. Oh boy. And then 2023 happened. The market, kind of the bottom fell out, in part due to interest rates, in part due to other factors, but there was basically very little funding for new ventures. If you had a promising and already growing venture at the time, you might be able to get follow-on funding. New money, very hard to come across, especially for great new founders with awesome apps where you can connect with wise people. It was not a good year in 2023, but I'm seeing a lot of signals that suggest there is movement back. The IPO market is moving a little bit as well. And these are all kind of signals that there will be some new venture funding. Maybe not like 21 and 22, which you could argue, that caused some fallout. I'm seeing a lot of down rounds and problematic issues because of the astonishing valuations. Some companies achieve for no reason, seemingly for no reason at this point. I think it's going to get back to a more kind of middle road. The right companies are getting invested in, and the investment funds are moving around. So I'm looking forward to a really good year in 2024 for founders that I work with. It should be a great time.
My phone doesn't stop ringing, Kevin. It's getting hard to manage all the incoming calls to invest in Owl, actually. It's funny that you bring that up. I have to have a whole wait list. I'm like, okay, I only take 4 meetings a week. No, I'm just kidding. For everyone out there, this doesn't work like that in the startup community. Even when you have a successful app and a whole marketplace of people talking about it and hundreds of posts, like last week we had hundreds of posts go out about Owl. Not one person called me to talk about investing in a platform. So truth of the matter is you got to go out and get it. You got to go to networking meetings. You got to go to like the Florida Venture Forums this weekend and pay the fee to get that ticket to go in and handshake investors' hands and tell them about your product, because they get so many inquiries that they don't pay attention. Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, you gotta meet people.
That's the key to all of this. If you're not willing to network, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, I don't care what field you're in, what great product you have, it's going to hide in a closet. It's not going to do anything for you. When you talk about MySpace, not that MySpace, I think someone just bought it for $8. But anyways, the in the area of, especially social entrepreneurship, non-for-profit, et cetera, if you're not visible, you're gone. And you have to get out there, meet the folks that are going to make the folks that you are serving, understanding your market, your audience, your people, critical. But those that are going to support it, angel investors are no different than governmental infusion. It's just how you manage it, and non-for-profits are the same thing as a for-profit business. It's just a tax designation and how you deal with profits, right? You can't realize a profit. You have to reinvest it into the organization. If you don't run it the same way, though, you will fail. So it's very important for people to understand. You might be out here with some great ideas. I can't wait to talk to each of you, but your idea might be a great nonprofit idea. You got to use it the exact same way that you're going to start any other business, and it starts with an idea. Get some passion, get a little spark, get a mission. The business planning is then the most important.
Yeah. So they're all in entrepreneurship class, and we just finalized their initial ideas that we're going to build business models around. And dare I say, some of them are even good.
I have probably 50 a week that are terrible, so that's good.
We ran through quite a few.
Yeah,
of those too.
yeah.
And some other ones that were just tough for class. They were pretty good ideas, but they might be a longer term development than the 12 weeks we have remaining, or whatever it is.
There's nothing like the long burn. Keep those ideas flowing, right?
Well, Micah, we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump to our newest segment of the show.
Yeah, right.
Join the fastest growing community of professionals on the internet with Owl. Access new networks and otherwise unreachable professional contacts through the one-on-one call feature on the app. Scroll through the list of available professionals and join them for a quick call to build rich connections, expand invaluable relationships, and to broaden your professional landscape without needing lofty referrals. Owl, we bring vetted pros to your doorstep 24/7 on demand. Join our community by signing up at owl.com today.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. This is your first time tuning in. We now go live every single week right around 1 o'clock at Shrimp Tank Boca on our Instagram account, our Facebook account, and also the FEU Adams Center account. So, Kevin, tell our audience about this new segment, and the students are going to fire away some questions.
Yeah, so this is maybe the What's Hot segment. We're not really sure, but maybe I'll ask you about something and if it's hot or what's hot, or maybe we'll turn it into something else. Our classroom actually has quite a few ideas about things we might add, but we're going to kick it off with a question from Ryan. Ryan's a bit of a legacy student. I had his brother in my class several years ago, and he was my top student, believe it or not. And I even got him involved in some startups, and then he went to grad school and landed a great job and is now out west still working on his own thing. So Ryan, you've got giant footsteps to fulfill there. You got a question for us?
Yeah, first of all, happy birthday. You said it's your birthday, right?
Thank you very much.
Of course.
I'm still upright, and I'm making it happen.
Yeah, my question is, how does marketing fit into the nonprofit space? Because I assume, based on the business model, people are coming to you for recovery. So what's the kind of marketing message for your business?
Very good question. Let me answer the first part first. All right. Are you familiar with a pink ribbon? What is that for?
It's for breast cancer, right?
Susan G. Komen, right? Great marketing. Great marketing. Okay. So that message is out there. It's ubiquitous. You see pink, you think of Susan G. Komen. When it comes to the recovery space, there's no ribbon, there's no color. There isn't that signifying message. And this is a health crisis that dwarfs cancer by an X factor. Okay. So it's not only critical, but we have to do a much better job. One of the challenges in that space is that a lot of the marketing has gone to the for-profit treatment space. Like any business, let's get someone in the door. It's like marketing a hospital. It's not much different than that. There's incredible treatment programs down here, been doing it for years. And they also know how to market very well. In our space, generally, marketing is way down on the totem pole. And we have to flip the script on that, right? Because if folks do not know what you offer, the services you offer, then who's going to come in for help? So boosting our social media is very important, but doing that in a very intentional way. Just kind of looks at just posting stuff. And just because you have a social media account doesn't mean it's going to be effective, right? The other part is engaging professionals. Marketing professionals are very important. I'm a little biased. A, I have a great one. B, I was born to one. So, I know how important this stuff is because everybody says, oh, I'm a marketing expert. No, you're not, right? There are folks that are really, really good at it. You need to bring on people. Like any good business, you want to make sure that you're not I'm never the smartest person in the room, ever. If I am, that's a pretty scary room. So you want to make sure you have those voices and that understanding, especially the changes in media. Media changes so fast. Understanding is so important. So for nonprofits, there's ways to do it. A great way to do that is connect with a university, connect with a college, get some interns, get those young minds that are nimble and flexible and can take those ideas and run with it, because it's a great thing in their portfolio to show that, hey, I gave of my time and we changed lives because of the messages we created. So it's critical to it. And that's across the board. Things like this, getting on podcasts, doing news interviews as those happen in traditional media, but also really having a good bandwidth in your social media. And again, good social media. I think that's really important. Of course, I say that too, and I'm not on any social media.
Can you dive in a tad deeper?
Sure.
Right? Everyone just talks about social media, and it's like the old school, like TikTok, Instagram, stories, posts, get some likes, get a following. But there's so much more in depth to it, right? Because you got to find the right crowd, and you just referenced that.
Yes.
So how do you find the right crowd? Because it's not about having. I look at this all the time. I have someone that's got 1 million followers, and it's like, but what are they liking? Right? What does that turn to if I partner with that individual? Nothing, right? And when you look at your posts that are going out, there's got to be intention behind the scenes. So can you just touch on some of that?
So I think a lot of what you want for us, it's such a local thing, right? That we want to have that conversion, that touch. So it's like they see a post on social media for either an event or an opportunity that they're actually going to come through the door, or they're going to reach out to one of our centers and have a conversation with someone. So we want that actual, not just a like, not just thing. We want to actually see that individual. And I think that's really important too. Think about your influencers, if you will. There's a lot of influencers in the recovery community. So that's another part of it too, but finding those right influencers, I think, is really important. But I look at it as if you can create a true relationship and a true engagement. Yeah, it's awesome if you have 1 million friends, but if they're not moving you in any direction, it's, I guess good for your ego.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff really goes back to the core of what we cover in the class, which is why we do this in conjunction with the class. It's like all the components. We'll talk about this in class at some point.
I got to come to class.
Of the business model. I mean, they really need to fit together, right? And certainly marketing and customer segments, right? So I think about your marketing efforts and intentions. You have at least 2 distinctive segments, right? You have people that are going to utilize the services when you need them, so you can prove your impact and do what you're doing. But you also are going to have different messaging and different targets when we're looking for donors, right? So that's a different
totally different message.
Yeah, so totally different sectors. And then something you just referenced quickly, but was immensely important, is you have a geographic constraint. and focus, as opposed to like the whole internet. You don't need people in New York and Maine and California knowing all about the center. They're not going to come. Like, they're not going to take a flight to go to that. They might try to see what's in their community, but those are components of the business model that inform one another, right? If you didn't have a geographic constraint and it was an online kind of, recovery system, then maybe, but it all really has to fit together. And that's what we hopefully will work through in class. Okay, Monty, you got a question? Let's go to the next one.
As he said, happy birthday, 50 years young. I wanted to ask about, you said you were always an entrepreneur. You're never really a 9-to-5 guy.
Right.
Were you always into social entrepreneurship and philanthropy and stuff like that? And also, what made you get into this specific field? You could have done anything else, obviously, in philanthropy, but you attacked, substance abuse and things like that. So what was it from the beginning, or did you just stumble upon it through word of mouth? Or
well, career-wise, it kind of just followed a natural progression, if you will. It was always in that space. I did a lot of work with at-risk youth early on, a lot of experiential education, and built a practice with a therapist friend of mine who was also a mentor. And that translated into working with agencies and what have you. But within that space, there's always, what's one of the causal effects of those challenges? A lot of it was behavioral health and certainly substance use, either in the parents and the families. And statistically, we can go in this room right now, and there isn't a single one of you that isn't touched in your family or one person removed from a substance use disorder. That's the way it works in this country right now. So my family certainly is no different than anybody else's. So there was definitely some internal cause, if you will, that helped motivate me. But also coming to Florida about 14 years ago, and I was working primarily still with youth in that prevention space, substance prevention down in Miami. And it's, again, when you're in that entrepreneurial view, you're looking at, well, you can't just work in silos sometimes. You got to see where the opportunities are. And in my case, it's not a question of opportunity to grow business. That's nice, but it's an opportunity to help a different group of people. And applying those leadership skills and those sort of broader senses to this particular community, and again, having further mentors and understanding of the space helps create this. This isn't a me thing, not in any way, shape, or form. This is a community thing, and it's informed by the community with utilizing best practices, with utilizing the supports that are critical to doing this. But it's always been something that's sort of been, again, it's just been part of me my whole life. And that comes down to having wonderful, I'll say it, I had great parents, instilled a sense of giving back and philanthropy in me, and also always recognizing when you're being mentored and taking full advantage of that.
All right. Well, Jason, next we're going to cautiously go to Henry, but I've gotten to know Henry pretty well over the past few classes. So there's a chance he may take over the show from here on out. So Henry, go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Happy birthday as well. Thank you for spending time and taking time out of your day to inform and teach us a little bit.
Always a pleasure.
I appreciate that. And my question to you is similar to Keimani's about your early on career. Mm-hmm. When did you figure out that you weren't a 9-to-5 person? Because I had a similar feeling myself, young, but I didn't see it until I was much older now, 28. And I've come to realize that I myself am not a 9-to-5 person. I enjoyed the jobs I did, the experience I got, but something in me now is just telling me there's more for you out there and you can do more.
Well, you answered your own question. A lot of it, there's just more out there for it. You can do more. I think everybody needs to have that attitude. And maybe it's not for everybody. Some people aren't comfortable with that. Remember, you got to be, if you're in this space, and trust me, in the nonprofit space, the let's just say the fiscal reward generally doesn't follow the emotional reward, right? But for me, I think, like I said, I think it's just seeing how I grew up, with a dad that had his own business and knowing the work that had to be put into it, but also seeing that the way I can describe it is my brain doesn't work 9 to 5. Maybe your brain doesn't work 9 to 5 either. When do you get your best ideas? Do they have them between 8 and 5? I mean, come on. So it's just, and also applying that to this particular space is a little bit different. People ask, well, how do you do what you do? Or what is, sometimes the joke is like, well, when you can explain what I do, please let me know so I know. But it is kind of applying those principles to a space that rarely had those principles. And also in this particular space, if you're not willing to put in all that time and that work, it's just not going to succeed, because these challenges don't live 9 to 5. Show up at a hospital at 3 a.m. It's a hopping joint.
But I will say, be careful what you wish for.
Ah.
Often people say, oh, I don't want a 9 to 5, Henry, right? And they become an entrepreneur and they don't see all the other things that people have to do behind the scenes. There's no off button, right? So emails come in on a Saturday and Sunday, or phone calls. Sometimes you got to grab them.
Mm-hmm.
You go to an event like I did at Podfest Expo, and I started a company called Owl. Guess who's putting up all the shit, 2 hours before the event and wheeling it through with a cart, right? What happens when the camera breaks? You got to buy another one. What happens with lawsuits, right? When you have startups, especially around mobile apps, there's going to be threats at you. There's Google reviews. There's hate speech all over the internet these days. It's very hard. And lots of times people say, oh, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. It sounds so cool, right? But, you still have to take care of your customers and your clients at all times. So when people say, oh, being an entrepreneur is freedom, it's like, yes, there's so many benefits to entrepreneurship, but it also comes with no off button. Is that correct?
Exactly right. And I think there's a big mistake where people think it's freedom. It's less freedom. I think it's more, the word I use is nimble. It's the opportunity to really craft yourself in a way to meet not only your needs, but meet the needs of either your business or, in my case, the needs of people, Yeah. And the hardest part, of that is that you don't want to lose yourself completely in the mix. I think that's the biggest pitfall. I think that's why some people gravitate back to 9 to 5, because they can't find those spaces to take care of oneself, because you're going to go full throttle. I mean, that's how I've lived my whole career, is it's full throttle all the time.
And putting out fires, right?
But a lot of
we
fires.
Talk about like
a
how
lot
many
of fires.
problems come up every single week for you. Right? You're talking about moving real estate. Now you got to deal. You got to deal with lawyers and real estate deals and realtors.
30 minutes not on this phone. I'm afraid what I'm going to find. That's you're so. But it's even more personal than that. I mean, if it's just the real, like I said, I have 2 physical places developing right now. It's like, okay, I got to get the AC guy to check the roof on this place. I got to get a new lock on this thing. I got to get that's fine.
And employees
too, and working with that. But then the other text comes in and you hear about someone you knew last year that's no longer with us.
Yeah,
that's a different fire to put out. So I think, especially in the space that I work, I almost welcome the nuts and bolts, because it's a real emotionally connected field. Because when you make relationships with these individuals, this is a risky venture. It's a risky relationship that you have, in the sense that they are vulnerable. They have a lot of needs, and it's dangerous in this world right now. So, I think that understanding that you are, again, like you said, I've been in bands too for a zillion years, and we were discussing earlier setting up. It's the same thing. It's like, who's taking care? I don't have roadies. Who's taking care of the chords? Who's taking care? Mic broke. These kind of. You're constantly
have to run with.
You got to do it, and you got to be willing to take that risk. But sometimes that's the action. That's what drives you to keep doing it. And if you look at any entrepreneur, it's not usually, very rarely, it's a one and done. Very rarely. Most entrepreneurs, they find that first success, they pour it into another success. They put the risk right out there and create something new. And think of healthcare, think of it. These things are all evolving issues. They're never going to be static. I mean, I went into my job in my field with keeping in the back of my mind, the goal of my work is to not have a job, right? At the end of the day, if we do everything we can possibly do and everybody's good, awesome. I can't wait for that day. Sadly, humans are humans, and that day is not going to come. So how do we do it differently and manage it better to make just that day for that one person that much better? That's what I have to work on. And I think that's one of the things that comes with staying in a space for long enough. You gain that institutional knowledge, and you gain that expertise, but you also gain that sense of reality. Or maybe it's just I'm getting old, and that's what happens.
Well, Micah, we're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we get back to this next segment, I'm actually going to invite Henry to the stage, see if Kevin is accurate that he could be our next co-host of the Shrimp Tank.
Step right up, Henry.
Okay, let's go, Henry. Get over here.
Step into our state-of-the-art innovation lab and create your digital future. Oz uses cutting-edge technology and 22 years of industry knowledge to enhance customer experience through digital innovation in a variety of expertise. Oz is a leading global consulting company whose services and solutions are trusted by startup, midsize, and even Fortune 500 companies. Get to know more about Oz's Salus, a mobile solution bringing us back to max capacity, and their latest solution, Rainmaker, saving insurance companies years of work. To learn more about Oz and their exciting technologies, visit followoz.com. That's FOLLOWOZ.com.
You never know, I might not.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, you could call our guest on the Owl app. We are the only podcast that I am aware of where the guest is featured on an app. And when they make themselves available, you will receive a text message or a notification and call the guest one-on-one for $1. And when you download Owl, you get $10 when using referral code HOOT. So all these students sitting here, you could call our guest. You don't know when he's going to make himself available. He has very limited time next week, but sometime in the next 7 days, he will make himself available. And you could pick his brain about anything. And of course, he's a mentor to many. So go ahead and use that opportunity wisely. So,
Well, I like what you did with that, Al.
Micah.
Wisely. Well done.
Well, owls are wise.
I like that.
Right?
Well done,
That's
yeah.
why Al has 2 W's. So, on this segment of the show, it is called Plead the Fifth.
All right.
You could only plead the fifth one time. If you plead the fifth 2 times, unfortunately, we're not going to air your episode. So be very, very careful. And
Double secret probation.
I brought my newest co-host to the stage, Henry. Right. So, Henry, we're going to kick this segment off with you. We're going to put some pressure because we were just talking about the pressure of entrepreneurship, right? And rolling with things, right? So ask Mike a question that he might not want to answer and say, I plead the fifth. You got one in mind?
I do, actually. I do.
Enthusiastically,
I
he
feel
does.
like somebody as yourself with this much experience and wisdom in your body.
Sure.
You've done a lot of good things, but I'm sure that you've done a lot of bad things to people who you did not want to. But is there a story in mind that you have where you may have not treated somebody in the best manner, not intentionally or intentionally, if you want to share the details, that sticks out to you to this day, that you tell yourself, this story is always going to bring me?
Great question. I like it.
Something
Or plead the
from
fifth if you don't want to answer it.
I don't want to plead the fifth. I think this is a really good question because it's true. You can't always be, you're not always right. You're not always, I think more of that, I would say that probably this is earlier on because you obviously learn more as you grow. It would be that not giving, it's tough to, I don't want to give name. And by the way, I can't give names because most of the people I work with, that's protected information, my friends. But not thinking of myself before the individual that was in front of me. Okay. And when they are laying out, and this is going back, this is like more an adolescent I was working with. And I was still thinking in that time zone, like, I got something I got to do. Right. And not valuing that person's moment. That right there. I know I'm looking at this person's face right there. And like I said, I can't give too many details, but it hurt the relationship we had, and it kind of eroded some of that trust we had built because when you're in this space, you don't want to let go of yourself, but you're in that moment with somebody and they're trusting you with that moment. You got to stay in it. And I think that's a rookie mistake, but I also see it on the backside of it when people are in this too long and it starts to become just normalized. But I still remember this kid to this day. So you really, my gosh, if you have a good client, if you have anybody, but regardless, make sure that moment's happening, stay in it, save yourself for later. Great question.
All right, I got a good question. Should be easy.
You got a lot closer too. This
is getting more intense as we go.
As you answer questions, we go over an inch or two.
This one's an easy question. Who's the greedy landlord who's throwing out such a great community resource in Delray?
I'll plead the fifth. That was a trick one. You just wanted me to play the fifth just so I didn't get him out. No, I have no. Look, it is what it is, and in real estate especially, one thing we certainly have. We're not one that can. With our funding streams, we're as close to a fixed income as you're going to get, right? So if someone's changing a property, that's one of the things you got to learn. But that's also how we show how good of an organization we are, where it's not like, okay, well, cry. Now what? Oh, woe is me. Look, let's tune it up. Let's look at our budget. Let's figure it out and look at the positive of it. So for us, it was an opportunity that, early on when this site was located, it was a good choice, but over the years, it's like, you know what, that'd be great if, and it kind of made us give an opportunity. So I plead the fifth of who. I'll behave.
Well, I love your approach to that. I am very much of the same mindset. It's just some things happen. I had an incident in the fall here that I'll plead the fifth on, and when things like that pop up, you just got to keep rolling with it. Sometimes you get some resources, sometimes you lose some resources. And, if it's beyond your control, you just got to keep moving.
That's it. And again, we look at the blessing in disguise. We're going to probably improve our foot traffic. We're going to increase the area where we're at has a lot of, recovery residences. It hits as a whole, more varied demographic, which is really what we're there for. We're there to help people. So do we want to be further out and make people work for it, or be a convenient part of the neighborhood? Gives us that opportunity.
Sometimes it's a blessing.
It is.
You're
That's what we're looking at it
in the moment.
Oh, I was pissed in the moment.
And then all of a sudden, your new location's better, right? And that happens to us all the time. Like COVID hit, right? Our original Shrimp Tank studio was right in our local office, and we were pissed off. We're like, we can't run the studio. What are we going to do? Move to Zoom? Zoom sucked.
Yep.
Right. We want an in-person experience. And then all of a sudden, Kevin was nice enough to give us this beautiful studio right here. And then guests started walking through the front doors of the College of Business. And now look at us today. We have a room full of FEU students, and we're matching the entrepreneurship class to the actual show. So sometimes when you're in that moment, you think it's the worst in the world. It works out even better than you realize one day.
I'll tell you what, too, and you're actually giving a prime example of the work that we do, because what you're doing is what we call an informed process. Young entrepreneurs having dialogue and interface with folks that are in the space, we can impart knowledge. But, as I tell a lot of groups, I'm going to bring the outside in, but you're bringing the inside out. So the value you bring to this experience is the most important part. And we call that menu of opportunity, but that give and get, right? You come into the hub and it's great. We're going to provide as much as we can for you, but what are you bringing? Your value is more important than anything we have here. What are we going to learn from that and create something together? I think that's really important. So I like this. So we're going to use some like cool chairs though, and things, make it real shrimp shaped.
I guess my last question of the day, to try to get you to plead the fifth twice, is just, tell us the story or your biggest PR nightmare. Obviously, you have someone on your team from PR that might have helped you get out of that nightmare. But what was the biggest nightmare? A lot of businesses do.
Question. Well, first of all, early on, you had to have PR to have a nightmare. But
not necessarily. A lot of companies don't. And then they run into a nightmare situation, and then they hire a PR firm to handle it, right? They erase, a lot of stuff off the internet, right? I Google people, and all of a sudden it's gone, right? PR agencies are known to, fix things.
We've in all the pieces that I've done, places I've worked with, and this isn't just to not plead the fifth, but fortunately, we've avoided any major nightmares. What we've had though are missed opportunities.
So I was gonna kind of jog your memory by saying something along those lines. So one of ours at the accelerator here at FAU, we had a company many years ago that their biggest PR nightmare was a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. They ended up on the Today Show live across the entire
Sandy, get working on that.
And it was a physical product that was something that had a dedicated timeline. It was a food-based product, so inventory was limited, and it only stayed good for so long. So website crashed. They didn't turn off their order forms until thousands and thousands of orders after the number of orders they could actually fulfill. So a whole bunch of people didn't get their gifts, and they got terrible reviews, and they just weren't prepared for that opportunity that fell right into their lap. So Yeah, those can happen. Have you had some of those?
Yes. And I think a lot of that comes down to, especially when you get in a place of need or like organizational crises, if you will. And you need to get a message out, and it needs to be the right message. And you want to, let me backtrack. It works both ways. So you want to share the positives. You want to share you want to celebrate your successes. But we all know that a lot of that falls on deaf ears a lot of times, unfortunately, right? So you want to make sure you're keeping a consistent flow of the positive. So when something does go awry, you can reach out to your support and get the resources you need to change that. So specifically, I mean, this is a great example right now. Hey, we have this great facility. We have to move, right? And there's going to be things we can and can't do. So we're creating the right message this time. So that when people hear it, it's not a question of failure or blame. It's going to be a question of opportunity and movement. And that's where good PR comes into play. And that will turn that potential nightmare into a positive. But I'll give you another, you say multiple streams. So I sit on a lot of boards and you deal with a lot of stuff. So right after this, I'm going to be on the news with Channel 5 up in Treasure Coast. And same situation. We are turning what could be a nightmare into a positive, and which is the case. Anytime you have a county entity and someone starts asking questions about this and that, and then the news gets a hold of it, they want something juicy. They want to know something bad's happening. And like, guess what? This is a nothing burger. It's all good. So it's crafting the right message to turn what someone may want to be a PR nightmare into a great opportunity.
That's a great close to the show of how much impact words can make in all situations, right? When I send a certain email, if I rephrase it a certain way, how someone perceives it, how one email gets a meeting, one email doesn't, right? One email gets an investor, one email doesn't, right? One email gets someone on the shrimp tank, one email doesn't, right? And it comes right back to PR. Why you said earlier in the show, like hiring the right PR agency, the right experts, the right marketing people. And it goes back to the right people in general, right? Because when you have a good team behind you, that's the difference between good companies and great companies, I always say, right? No one ever sees behind the scenes all those little touches that are occurring. And you, my friend, understand that because you were born with it. It's in your DNA, like you said earlier, with your parents raised you like that. And, of course, we see it in your businesses, like you shared today. Well, Micah, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, besides for the Owl app, what are the routes?
You can reach me at my hub email address, Micah, MICAH, at pbchub.org. Easy way. And through there, we'll get you a phone number. I like texting, but I'm not going to throw my number out here all over everywhere. But reach out and we'll definitely do that. I'll talk to anybody, especially on this stuff, and especially working with young people, any way that I can be a support to what you're doing, because I know you're going to be great things to this community. So
that's the benefit of the Owl app. You're not sharing your phone number. It's all in-app phone calls.
It's all app. Hey, so get on the Owl app. You're going to find me.
There you go.
And I can't wait. I hit a button and this thing happened. This is great. So I'm going to, whatever the Owl app needs, I'm there. Okay. Hoot, hoot.
Well, everybody listening, we'll be back next Wednesday, right around 1 p.m. Take care. Like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a swim on the option.